Welcome to Positive Talk Radio, the podcast. I'm your host, Kevin McDonald, and my mission is to bring interesting people and great ideas to the internet and to you. We discuss everything that life is about, our bodies, mind, and great human spirit. Our goal is to educate, enlighten, entertain, and empower each one of us to create and live the life that we really want and discard all those negative feelings and emotions that this life can sometimes bring. I hope you will enjoy this episode of Positive Talk Radio and have just an awesome day. And good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kevin McDonald, and you're listening to Positive Talk Radio. Yeah, this is the podcast, and I'm just thrilled to pieces again. It's been a couple of months since my friend Amy Satori has been on the show, and I want to invite her back. I've got lots to talk to her about, and I hope that you'll stay with us for the entire episode. Theoretically, it should be a pretty powerful one, so I'm hoping that you'll stay with us. First of all, let me give you a little bit of background on Amy. I met her way back in 2003, and I sensed at that time that she had the ability and had some real positive energy about herself that could work into something more, and something more energetically, something more in working with the unseen realm and the other side. And over the years, through ups and downs, she's the first one to talk to my dog, as an example, and had a nice conversation with Crockett, and over the years, she has become quite a dynamo. She lives in Boulder, Colorado now, after moving, it seems like a dozen times throughout the United States, but it was probably 4 or 5. But she lives in Boulder, Colorado, has really started to own her gifts, understand her gifts, and use her gifts to help people, which is what they're designed for. So with that, she is extraordinary. She's a psychic medium. She can work with your aura and your field of health and your energetic being. She can talk to your higher self. She can even talk about past lives and that sort of thing. It's pretty incredible what she does, and she does a lot of it. With that, Amy, good afternoon. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thanks, Kevin. I'm doing good.
It's
been a nice, relaxing day.
Oh, that's good. Now, let me ask you, that introduction, is that in any way accurate, or did I miss something?
Yeah, it was accurate. Yeah.
Oh, well, good. Well, good, because
there was a lot in there, so.
Well, there's a lot that you do, and you incorporate it all at the same time. If someone sits down with you, you can call on all of these gifts to help them in many ways.
Well, let me tell you what I tell people when they sit down if they haven't been to me before. I tell them that I do a special Qigong healing modality that I've been taught, and I'm able to scan their energy field, and I look for emotional blockages. I can extract them, and I seal them off, essentially, theoretically, resetting their neurotransmitters so they can start to respond differently to these issues, which is something we can get into later. Also, I tell them I can talk to animals, I can talk to people who've passed away, and believe it or not, I had one reading recently where I actually talked to the cartoon Thumper, and I had to laugh about that. Like, things are just getting weird.
You talked to Thumper?
Yeah. Well, what it is it's the energy of Thumper. And this could be anybody, even if it was Jesus or Buddha or whoever comes through. It's the energy of it.
Uh-huh.
So, Thumper obviously doesn't exist and never did, but he does represent something. And if a person needs to hear something that only Thumper can, bring through, then that's how it comes through.
Well, sure, because that has meaning. So if it has meaning, it has energy.
Yes. Yes.
And so in order to and people on the other side who are trying to communicate because they don't have a mouth, They don't have hands to do hand signals, so they have to communicate through energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because they're communicating through energy, they have to use symbolism.
Yes.
And the thumper is a grand example of symbolism because that is something that they knew that this person would get.
Exactly. And he just lit up. He was like, really? Thumper's here? And he said, I love Thumper.
That's right. And
so you could tell that he just went right back to his childhood, and he was just lit up, just eager to see, like, what is he going to say?
Well, you know, and what really is interesting about that, Amy, is that there are lots and lots of skeptics in the world, but I would like them to come up with a scenario by which that you would say Thumper, and he would say my favorite, and that not come from somebody else. I mean, how the hell would you know that? I mean, you could go, yeah. I mean, if you're going to talk about a cartoon character, you would go Bugs Bunny, you'd go Daffy Duck, you'd go Mickey Mouse. Thumper would be way down the list. Of possible cartoon characters that you're going to pull out of thin air that's going to mean so much to this guy.
That reminds me of another time when this gal sat down and she's saying, "Oh, I think I would like to talk to my grandpa," and I just said, "Oh, wait a minute, I'm hearing something." And she said, "What?" And I said, "Don't cry for me, Argentina." And she just about fell out of her chair and she starts crying. She says, "He used to sing that all the time."
Oh, that is...
It's like, you know, I would never in a million years have come up with that as the song that would really touch this girl's heart and make her feel connected to her grandpa, you know?
No, that's... see, and those are the sorts of validations that you get about your work that then tells you that you're certainly on the right track and that you do have a connection, because the only person I've ever heard sing that song was Madonna.
Oh, I didn't know she had a version of that.
She did the movie version of that musical because she, I can't remember the specifics, but no, so that's where I remember that. That's the only way that I would even know that song existed. So, but that's one of those things that's not something that you would, I mean. Do you know any recording artist that even does that song? And now that I've told you Madonna, but other than that?
No, I had no idea who even did it. No.
So that means that what that says to me is that you're the conduit that the energy on the other side is using to reach their stated goal of helping their loved ones on this side. That must be very gratifying for you.
Incredibly. I feel humbled by it all the time.
Well, I'll tell you, it is something that you have been working at. I mean, I've known you for 13 years. Hard to believe it's been 13 years already. But and I've watched your evolution. And now, and I don't know if you remember this, but I told you years ago, I told you that you needed to own this because you were really good at what you did. And there was a lot of resistance for a long time.
Yeah.
And that's because, and self-doubt, and I can understand. I can understand why you would be doubting the fact that, because there's a difference. 10 years ago, Thumper may have come to you, but you wouldn't have said it. Because you would have said, no, that can't be right.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And now Thumper comes to you and you say it, and it's like, okay, what about Thumper? And there you are. And it's because you are genuine. You are the genuine article. There's nothing fake about you. There's nothing dishonest about you. You are the genuine article, and that's why I come to you.
Thanks, Kev.
And I ask for your help and advice. And so this is something that I've thought long and hard about that I needed to talk to you about, and I'm going to put it on the podcast solely and simply because I think it's important that other people recognize, because we're all going through the human experience, and certain things happen in certain ways that we don't understand, and certain behaviors that we exhibit that we don't understand, certain addictions that we have that we don't understand why we have them, or how to get rid of them, or how difficult it is to do all that, until the other side and your higher self and everybody that loves you on the other side says to you in no uncertain terms, all right, dude, you need to change. Now, sometimes we don't recognize that, and we ignore it, and which I have done for the last 30 years. But there's a certain point in time when you reach the point where it is going to affect the rest of your life, including how long you live, how healthy you're going to be, are you going to be able to work, are you going to have the things in life that you would like to have, or are you going to sell yourself down the river and end up having a horrible, horrible existence, or end up dying in a way that your soul did not intend for you to set out to do. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. Was I have had an issue for the last forever, since I was 19. I'm 59 now. I guess that would make it about 40 years with alcohol. And it's not that I am dysfunctional. I go to work every day. I do what I have to do, but I have felt for a very long time that it's something that I probably should eliminate because it's not good for me. But over the course of time, my body has started to act in ways that are making it mandatory for me to change my ways. So my first question to you is, in thinking about the other side and how they're trying to work with me, am I correct in saying that they're saying, all right, well, if you're not going to do what we ask you to do, this is going to happen. And if you continue after that, then this is going to happen. Is it possible that could be how it's working for me?
That's one way to perceive it. We're certainly not punished in that way. It's like your higher self has set up a way to kind of keep you on point and keep you on your path, and not because it's like there's a God up there saying you need to be a pure person and get to the end goal and love people and treat people right. There's no judgment to it. It's more what you wanted to accomplish in this lifetime before you even came down here, and your higher self is trying to keep you on track with that, and with that comes your greatest happiness as well. So it will do what it can to bring you to that, your greatest joy. So one thing that
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
It uses pain. Pain, it could be physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain. It could be any kind of pain. And what it does is it gives you a little bit, and it sees what you do with it, and it sees if you notice it, which is kind of along the lines of how you were talking about my abilities, how they've kind of changed through the years. I've gotten more subtle to where if Thumper appears to me, I stop and I look at it and I pay attention, and I'm like, what do you want? What do you need? So it's like pain will just come as a real subtle thing at first. Your heart might have a palpitation, or you might feel some anxiety or something like that. But if you ignore that, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, like you're describing, until you'll take a look at it. So I mean, that's one way of describing it, but it's much more loving and gentle than and it really is trying to bring you to your greatest joy. It's not trying to destroy you. It's trying to get you to do your turnaround to it. Turn away from it and back on your path.
Well, the way I look at it to me, is kind of like they have a great sense of humor. And this is all it's kind of a humorous thing. It's kind of like, okay, this is your path. This is what you said you wanted to do. And we set it up for you so that you could do what you want to do to give yourself and others great joy. Okay, so if you're not going to do that, then we're going to do this to see how you react to that and moving forward. And it's kind of like, all right, well, if you're going to still ignore me, then here, have this. And eventually they'll say, then they make it impossible for you to ignore the choices that you're making, because it all ends up making it so that you're wasting your own time in this life if you don't make changes. Is that right?
Yeah, and what's really funny is really everything is dictated by our free will. So we are either in our own way or we're not. And they have to abide by free will. They can't do anything against you. So those little nudges, they can nudge all they want to, but they can't do a thing to sway your mind if you're convinced that you're going to go down this path, period, end of story. So you're the one who's creating all your misery and everything as you go, because you're choosing that path and choosing to stay on it. They're just overseeing the whole thing, and they're trying to do what they can to, persuade you, but they can't persuade you against your will. So they cannot make a decision for you or choose for you.
See, for me, it's kind of like I was with my kids. There were times when they would make a decision that I knew was not good for them, and I could tell them, this is not good for you, and this is the likely outcome of that decision. But at the end of the day, I couldn't make that decision for them. So they got to do that decision, and most of the time they would come back and say, "Boy, I wish I'd have listened to you, Dad," because it was something that I'd already experienced. So our higher self does the same thing with us, at least for me. Now, my question then for you is also this: when you have some sort of an addiction, and I've also fought smoking for a good part of my life. When you have an addiction, and the way it works for me is, I will start off very strong, and it will be, all right, I'm not going to smoke today. I'm not going to smoke today. I'm just not. Or I'm not going to have a drink today after work, and I'm just going to go do something else. And then along about sometime before I'm about ready to either be done with work or throughout the course of the day, there's this little voice that comes into my back of my head that says, well, quitting smoking is hard, and you might want to take it in stages. So I'll tell you what, why I start making deals with myself. It's like, you don't have to quit all at once today. Why don't you go ahead and have 5. Okay, set your goal at 5. 5 cigarettes, that's what you're going to smoke today. And then the other part of me says, well, I don't know. I really should just go cold turkey. And he said, no, it's too hard to go cold turkey. Why don't you just have 5? And so I said, well, all right, I'll do that. That makes me happy. Somehow I'm now happy that I'm going to smoke 5 cigarettes. And then after I finished my 5th one and there's still more time left to be in my day, then it's like, well, what's the difference between 5 and 6, really? There really is no difference between. So what is that voice? Where does that stupid voice come from?
Oh, my gosh, there's so much to what you're saying. For one, it's kind of like, I'm trying to think of an analogy of, the only thing I can think of, and it's a bad one, is like pushing against a river and trying to contain it and push it back. I'm not going to do this. I can be strong. And all of a sudden it just finally just breaks free, or trickles around until it finally breaks free, which is what you end up doing.
Exactly.
But you can't, anything that you resist is only going to push its way through even harder eventually. So I know that even when you're working with your shadow side, the same thing. We were talking about anger once, and how if you say, oh, I shouldn't be angry, and you judge it, I shouldn't be smoking or whatever it is, if you push against it, it's going to come out inappropriately. It's going to come out when you least expect it, or at work or somewhere where it's really not welcomed.
Right.
Whereas if you're able to objectively take a look at whatever that is, the smoking or the anger or whatever it is, it's a negative, quote unquote, thing in your life. If you can just look at it and respect it and respect the power behind it, then that's what's going to give you your power back and kind of take the power away from whatever that thing is. But pushing against it is just going to make it more of it, And that voice that you're talking about, that's the ego. And what an addiction is caused from, essentially, is you wanting to be truly yourself and your true nature. So it's a good thing at first. It's like you're wanting that feeling of just being one with God, in a sense, that you have that relief. You have that feeling of this is just awesome. It feels so good to be alive. And so you get it through what you happen upon an unhealthy substance or whatever that is. And even people who aren't addicted to that, but they're addicted to thinking or overthinking things, or they're addicted to, there's so many different things you can be addicted to, and some that are more subtle. It's I'm not addicted to Coke, at least. I'm just addicted to marijuana.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Whatever it is.
But
whatever it is that...
No, what you just said, Amy, is I want to stop you there real quick, because it's like let's take having a couple of beers or more after work. It's like, I've done a good job today. I've always considered it a reward. I did a good job today. Now I can relax and just enjoy myself, and it feels good, and it feels good.
Yes.
So so. It feels good all the way until you wake up the next morning. Then it's like, oh, God, what did I do that for? Because now I feel terrible.
Well, and it's, if you've studied anything about positive reinforcement, it's positive reinforcement, and it's also having to do with those neurotransmitters. They're darn things. They really can get in the way because they can work for you or they can totally work against you. But they're basically forming patterns based on habit, things that are just reinforced constantly. So the other element is that if you basically look at what the essentials are, there's you getting back to your essential self, and then there's the ego that's trying to say, no, I'm in charge. I can fix everything. I can do everything better. And so it's the little soldier that comes in and says, hey, we can do this by being strong, and we can do this by being this, and we can do this by manipulation, and we can do this by, and that's that little voice you hear is your ego. Again, no, you don't want to push against the ego, because then then it'll flare up in, those unexpected, inappropriate ways. But to notice that that's the ego and that's not yourself is a good differentiation to make. And then also to realize that essentially you're dealing with the same thing is, no matter what you're plugging it into, it's basically a distraction. Your ego is just a distraction. Of course, your ego loves addictive substances because it's like, oh my gosh, is this the gold mine for me? Because I can put blame in there and lay it on thick. I can put guilt in there. I can make them think about it too much. I can make them spin out on this. This is just awesome, The ego is just thrilled to death. But then here you are still needing and never getting your connection to your true self. So there comes a point where you're doing what you're doing right now, which is really critical and really an awesome point, is for you to get to where you say, I have an addiction. I have a problem, and it's ruining my life, and I don't want to do this anymore. And here comes in your free will, where you have to decide, this is not the way I want my life to be anymore. I want it to change. It has to change.
Right.
So, yeah.
And
so then it's like, how do I change? Oh, go ahead.
Well, no, you are exactly right, because then the way that I equate that I have set this up all by myself. from my higher self to me, because as long as I continue doing what I'm doing, I can never do what I really want to do. Even though I don't know necessarily what it is that I want to do, I can't reach that point because I'm going to get stuck in the same pattern. It's like Groundhog Day. It's doing the same thing over and over and not achieving anything that you're looking to do. And
right. The ego can keep you in a hamster wheel.
That's it.
Whatever the hamster wheel is, it could be overthinking things. And you're like, and then you stop for a second. Wait a minute. Am I getting anywhere? Oh, well.
That's a wonderful analogy.
It's just true, and so what has to happen is your free will needs to come in and say, okay, I'm done with this. This has been a nice chapter, but I think I want the real thing now. Instead of the prostitute, maybe I'll try a wife, like intimacy and some other wonderful things to have like a real tangible something that can actually make me feel really great and grow me as a person. I could have many more wonderful experiences. I can't bring a prostitute to every party I go to. I can't bring her, we can't have intimate conversations like I'd have to, you know what I mean, like I'd like to have, and I can't necessarily bring her for a walk on the beach. So there comes a time when you have to kind of throw the lesser thing to the side and go for the real thing, as scary as it might be, from certain aspects, or at least you think it is till you get there anyway.
Well, have you ever done one of those, taking a piece of paper and put a line down the middle of it and do a pro and con thing of a particular thing, whatever it may be? In my world, in this particular thing, I've got like a dozen reasons why I should not continue doing what I'm doing, and one reason only that I want to do that. And that is because at the time, at that moment, it feels good. But it doesn't last. And then on the other side is you get a headache, it's expensive, it wastes your time, you can't, a myriad of things. And up until now, and now I have to add to that list, it is drastically affecting your health. And what I would like to do, what I would really like to do out of this little episode that we're doing is to encourage people to not get to the point where it is affecting their health so much that they have now the decision, there really is a fork in the road for me. It's either continue doing what I'm doing and become disabled, I'm not able to work, I don't have any money, and I'm going to die young. That's the one road that I have to go on. And the other road is, okay, you change what you're doing, work to recover your health, and see what happens. Because I've gone down the other road so long, it's hard to get on this other road, but to see what will actually come out of it. But at the tender age of 59, it's kind of an exciting prospect to see what will happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I remember. I don't remember who said this actually, but I remember hearing something that I went, "Oh my gosh, that's so true." That addiction is a lack of belief in something better.
Yikes.
So it's almost like you have to stop and ask yourself, what do I want my life to look like? What could be the result of me giving this up and having a whole different life? Because it would have to be dramatically different. It's like, you feel all stuck in your patterns in your life when you're here doing your job 9 to 5, doing the same routine every day. But when you go to France or you go to Italy or London or wherever you go on vacation for a couple weeks, you almost have permission to be a whole different person. And it's like the routines and everything are thrown out, and you see life so differently because everything is vivid and fresh and new, just like being in the moment, really being in the moment. And that's what traveling does for you too, is it really anchors you in the moment. But you have to,
Well, no, I was just thinking, you're absolutely right. And if you go on that different path, and that's the one thing that I do. I get stuck in the same pattern. I do tend to do the same thing every day. If I go to work, I go to the same place for the convenience store to pick up lunch. I go to the same place after work. I go get gas at the same place. Everything I do is kind of the same. But to shake it up and to do something different, for some people that's very scary. But for others, that would be a really broadening experience, I would think. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it really helps you to break patterns. One of the things that Matt Kahn talks about in his newest book is that he says to do something different all the time. Everything that you do it different every day. So, I mean, and these are little tiny subtle things that are really easy to do. Open your door with your left hand instead of your right hand. When you go to watch a movie, maybe put your laptop or move the TV or something else, or sit at a different angle. It could be answering your phone in a different way. It could be like, instead of saying hi or hello, you could say, how you doing?
Yeah.
It could be, instead of setting your drink where you always set it on the other side. I mean, you could go to the restroom different than you normally do. You could brush your teeth different than you normally do, just by waving your hands in the air, or acting like a monkey in the mirror, or going to bed on the other side of the bed.
Oh yeah.
It could be the most subtle things, a different route to work, or looking or listening to maybe a different CD on your way to work. It kind of just freshens things up and helps you to break those neurotransmitters.
Now, describe those neurotransmitters for me. How would you describe what they do and why they can be so devastating?
Well, they can really help you a lot too, if they're positive reinforcing in a good way.
Oh, okay.
But they're indiscriminatory, so they'll do whatever you program them to do. But basically, they form habit. It's like you meet somebody with red hair, and that person yells at you, and it was your first exposure to somebody with red hair. So, that first time you might say, oh, ouch. And you may not even have noticed that they had red hair, but you'd be, ow. And then the next time you see somebody with red hair, somebody totally different, and then they start saying mean and nasty things to you, and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And then you notice the red hair the second time. Because it doesn't happen to you every day, but this red hair thing seems to become a theme. So the third time you see somebody with red hair and it happens again, then a neurotransmitter is taking note. And it is saying, every time you see this red hair, we are running. And it forms like this, it starts to take over your behavior, so you don't have the chance to think about your behavior. It takes a shortcut. And it does that to it can save your life that way. But it can also ruin your life that same way. So we have to be really careful the conclusions that we jump to and the judgments that we make, because our neurotransmitters will shape and form around that. And it's just a bunch of cells connecting in such a way that become like rapid fire reactions.
I had never heard it explained that way, and that's very clear, because we run into situations like that all the time, where we have a negative situation and it repeats itself, and so suddenly every time that you run into a situation like that, it's always going to be the same and it's always negative, even though that's not the case. It's the pre judgment of everything that exists. We've already come up with a reason and created a story as to why it is that way.
Yeah, and this can get so extreme that let's say like every time you see the redhead from then on out in a huge crowd of 1,000 people, you might not even realize what you're running from, but you may just panic and run the other direction, or you become like agoraphobic and you can't leave your home because you get so paranoid about what is out there that could hurt you.
Because everything.
So you really do have to watch.
Oh yeah, that's a very that whole concept is very real. That's not a hoity-toity thing. That's
no, that's very scientific. You could look it up look it up on YouTube to see how they work. It's pretty fascinating.
I imagine, because that would be why do we make it so difficult on ourselves, do you suppose?
So that it can be awesome when we figure it out. When you break through and have an epiphany on the other side, it wouldn't be that awesome if it wasn't kind of tough in the meantime. I mean, I'm really grateful for my past. I've been through hell and back, and I am so glad I did, because I love my life now, It's just...
I know. I
appreciate.
Yeah, and I know some of the things that you've been through, and you have been through a lot. But then I suppose that's all part of the experience of living and of growing.
Well, and I tell people this sometimes, that I had been to that enlightened state, and the way that I got there the last time was through my body and being aware of the light in my body and being aware of the vibration of my body and getting in tune with that through Eckhart's book. But this time around, I was like, why was I knocked out of this enlightened state? I don't understand. And then I just went through this total depression from it, and had my own addiction to wanting to get back into enlightenment. And then it was like I had to go back down again, or go back to the lowest part of my life again, so that I could build myself back up through having a positive attitude. Because those are the two ways that you can make it to enlightenment. One is through the body and through the experiencing it to get yourself there, and the other is to use positive thinking to get you there. So I had to go through the positive thinking part, which was really my challenge, because if you would have met me in my 20s, I was pretty negative about quite a bit. And I felt like quite a victim.
Really?
And but I just shaped and formed my thinking toward positivity. And sometimes, people will think, oh, you're so naive, or you've got rose-colored glasses, or you're always thinking the glass is half full. Oh, wait till she's let down. But if you get your positive thinking programmed so much so that nothing could be negative, then you've got nothing that's going to devastate you. You know what I mean? So if this thing doesn't, say you have hopes that something will work out, that something will happen, and it doesn't, you'll be like, oh, well, good. Then that only means that something better is coming along. You know what I mean?
Oh, exactly.
You can't devastate somebody unless that person's half-heartedly positive. But if you're full-on positive, convinced that the universe is completely behind you and completely on your side, and no matter what ever happens to you, it is always for the best, then there's nothing you can do to shake that person. So let them go ahead and think whatever the heck they want to.
Well, absolutely, and the thing is, Amy, is that, by the way, in case you're wondering, we're talking with Amy Satori. Go to amysatori.com, and you can find out all sorts of things about what Amy does. But I just wanted to mention that we have the when we're talking about positive thinking and being real positive, you're not being real positive from a naive position. Because you've been through it all. You've been through a lot of stuff, and so you now have making a consciously positive decision.
Yes.
And
exactly.
That's real different, because now because you're right. If something doesn't work out, then something better is coming along. Or if a person treats you badly, it's like, well, I'm sorry that they're having a bad day, rather than what's wrong with that asshole. Excuse the expression. But this is a podcast, so I can say that. But that's so it's. I have to say that you are on an incredible journey and are really doing some wonderful stuff, and you're growing so much. Every time I talk to you, you've grown a bunch. You know that?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm free falling. I've just got my hands up in the air on the roller coaster ride, and I'm screaming. We'll just see what happens.
Well, and good things are happening for you. And what's nice is good thing. And by the way, this conversation has made me feel much better and has given me a measure of understanding of the ego process and how the ego is really can be. The ego is an important part because you need to ask a girl out on a date, to do a podcast like this, to walk down the street. You have to have a certain amount of ego to be able to do those things. But if it gets out of line and becomes all controlling, that's when you run into problems. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's like, okay, let's go back to the date situation. It could actually, if you were totally in the moment, free of your ego, you could also be very much pulled by the universe to go ask that person on a date. It doesn't necessarily take ego to do that. And as you know, when I was in the enlightened state for 6 months, I didn't have an ego. At least not that I'm aware of in retrospect. At the time, I wasn't even aware that I didn't have an ego. I just had, I was just in the beingness completely. So at that point, you really don't even need the ego because you're just kind of led by God or led by the universe instinctively to do your next step, whatever that step is, whether it's go walk across the corridor or go pick a flower or talk to that person right there. Everything is prompted for you, so there's no thinking involved. But you don't get rid of the ego by judging it and condemning it and fighting against it, though. You have to have a certain appreciation and respect for it, and then it freely goes on its way, and it's no longer needed.
And so how do you get rid of it again?
Okay, so there's this really awesome...
I'm taking notes.
Really, really awesome. There's this awesome exercise, actually, that Matt Kahn does in his video, Respecting the Shadow. It is such an awesome video. But basically, the gist is this. Let's go back to the anger thing. Okay, so you feel yourself like welling up with anger, whatever the feeling is. So what you do is you close your eyes. If you can, sit quietly, go somewhere, close your eyes. You don't have to do it closing your eyes. And you just see the anger in yourself, and you feel the power of it welling up inside of you. And you just feel that anger, and you just say, wow, look at that. It's so powerful. It has total control over me. Let's take addiction. Let's use that one because that one's real fresh for you right now. Okay, so are you doing this? Close your eyes.
Yes, ma'am.
Get into the addiction and how you're really feeling the power of that addiction and its hold on you. You got a grasp on it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now I want you to say to that addiction, addiction, I respect your power.
Addiction, I respect your power.
And how does that feel?
It makes my addiction feel good that I respect.
Okay.
Because I've spent a long time disrespecting my addiction. So if I respect it, it's like, well, gee, that's about time you feel good about me.
Okay. So then, all right. So close your eyes again and go back into this. So what feeling is there now?
Freedom.
Awesome. Okay. So what sometimes happens with this exercise is you might have addiction, and then you might have hopelessness. Then you might have anger. Then you might have sadness. But the way you use this exercise is every one of those feelings that starts to surface, the moment it does, you look at it with this exercise and you just really go into the feeling of it, feel the power of it, tell it that you respect its power. And here's what happens is you are not necessarily approving of whatever it is you're respecting, but you are actually acknowledging the power itself behind it. And so you're taking that power into you, and and the behavior is just kind of dissolved. So it's like you've acknowledged the negative feeling, which is important. It wants to be validated and acknowledged, not suppressed and pushed away and judged, but it wants to be able to be noticed and validated, and you've done that. And then respecting the power also, like, tells yourself, I resonate with that power. That power is powerful. I love it. It's awesome. So you absorb that into you, and then the other dissolves, and then you essentially feel peace. And it's like you've taken your power back away from that behavior.
So
every time you do this, yeah?
No, that's really cool. That's pretty amazing.
It is. And the more you work with it and the more that you do this, sometimes we'll forget to do it, and we'll find that we're, like, pouting for a little while, brooding over something for a bit. But the minute you become conscious of it, then do the exercise and just be really diligent about it. And it really is profound. Very, very helpful.
Wow, that is just awesome, because, at the end of the day, I do have to say that in the course of my life, when I've had this argument with myself, or my argument with the ego about should I, shouldn't I, well, if I do it today, and I'm making deals with myself about, well, I'll go ahead, inevitably, whenever I am not on my path and not doing what I know I want to do, and it's not even what I should do, it's what I want to do, and then I go do something else, like if I say, well, you know what, I'll just have a couple of beers tonight, and then tomorrow night I won't have any. But inevitably, I don't feel good about that decision after I've made it. But if I make the decision that, no, I want to do something else and eat something healthy, as an example, or go for a walk, I feel much better about it, about that decision. Does that make sense? That deep down inside?
Yeah. If you truly feel that that's a better thing to do, in fact, this kind of brings me back to choosing your bliss, and that is all about, like, in any given moment, you have 5 options, 10 options, 20,000 options, really, to do whatever the heck you want to in the next moment. So, like right now, when I hang up with you, I have the choice to go downstairs and make my dinner, or I could go out and take a walk, or I could just open up my window and listen to the wind. It's really going crazy right now. I could watch something on YouTube. I could take a nap. I could do my laundry. I mean, there's so many things that you can do in any given moment. So it's important to choose whichever one feels the very best, like what really feels good to do right now, even if it's totally unrelated to your eventual goal in life, or if it's, unrelated to, you're wanting to achieve enlightenment, or whatever you think you want to get to in the end result. Just choose right now for the moment what's very best for you. And that will start to lead you. It's like you will start to listen pretty automatically to that bliss calling you into that next moment. And you'll start to be led by that. Instead of following the path of what will take you down to negativity, you're going to start following a path that just leads up and up and up and up. And they may be tiny little steps, but they'll train your brain to go in the direction of what makes you happy. So do I want to go have a beer, or do I want to take a walk, or do I want to this or that? Yeah, choose what makes you happy, and even in that next moment, choose something that makes you even happier. Yeah, I could go take a walk. How about going and taking a walk and ending up at a bluegrass festival,
Yeah.
Something like that. So then it keeps leading you higher and higher as you go, and you follow that bliss.
That's very interesting. And Amy, you were just something, and I really appreciate you taking the time with me today, because it's been impactful for me. And I do have to say, you know your stuff, kid. You really do. You're good.
Well, and I want to acknowledge you, too, because this is a really tough subject and a really hard thing to admit, especially publicly like this. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's huge. Good job.
Yeah, but this is the radio guy. This is if you were to walk up to me tomorrow and say, "Hey, you know what? This is this true?" And it's like, "Oh, I have no idea what you're talking about." You know, but you know.
Okay, all right. Now we got to start again, Kevin.
Yes, I know. Well, you know, it's.
You can't fix it from a place of denial. That's for sure. You can't fix anything from a place of denial. So you've got to own up to the addiction. All your different people inside of your head.
Well, no, I get it.
Kevin on the radio, the Kevin in real life.
Yeah.
You all have to come together.
Yeah.
And decide.
We'll come to make a decision. Well, we already have. Well, actually, I made the decision for myself, which makes it a lot easier. So because I just can't continue.
Good.
It just doesn't. I just can't. Yeah. It just doesn't make any sense. Or I'm going to end up talking to you from the other side. And I'm not ready to talk to you from the other side yet.
Yeah, I don't want that happening either.
So there.
Although it seems to be pretty fun over there, but no, you don't have to do that. There's so much more you're going to be doing here on Earth.
There is.
I can't wait to see. You're going to make such a huge impact. And the only reason you're going through this is so that you can help others do it too.
Well,
do it for them.
That's
too, you know?
That's true. That's so. Never mind. I'm not going to go into that right now about because now I believe that you know what's going to happen to me in the future, and I'm not going to put that out there quite yet because I'm not ready. You're too much. We've been talking with Amy Satori. Go to amysatori.com. This is going to be on Positive Talk Radio's website or podcast. And Amy, I'm going to send you a copy, and you can do with it whatever you wish.
Thanks.
By the way, if somebody wants to contact you for a reading on the phone or in person, they can go to your website. Is that right?
Yeah, and I can put my number out there.
Oh, okay.
It's 817-219-8831.
Very good, and that's you can get a hold of Amy. She can talk to you just like we did this session on the phone. You can do the same thing, and she is just you've grown. I can't believe how much you've grown. You are a master, and I appreciate you.
Well, thanks, Kev.
You're awesome. So thanks again. You have a great day, and we've been doing this for about an hour, so we better wrap it up so the people actually will stay to the very end. So thank you, Amy.
Yeah.